And we're live.
Sounds good.
Samuel O'Connell, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's been a long time since I saw you, years, I think at this point, but
It's great to
that's
see you.
it's great to see you. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
great to see you.
Good fond memories of the old NEPA scene podcast every Wednesday night or whatever.
Yeah, it was I probably haven't seen you since then. When I stopped doing that with Rich in 2019-ish, the middle of that
Jesus
that year.
Christ.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that was, and then 6 months later or 9 months later, we had a worldwide pandemic. So here we are.
yeah. It's weird to see people you haven't seen in 2 years or whatever, or 3 years, and you feel like you just saw them, and they're like, "Yeah, it's been 2 years." You're like, "Fuck!" Like, oh my god.
Well, the internet, man. We have this thing, the Facebook and Instagram. Like it's like I feel like I see everybody every day.
Yeah, true.
You look the same,
That's good to hear.
still handsome.
Right back at you, buddy.
Not very punctual with your time.
Yeah. Oh my God. And there's no
Sam's
excuse.
15 minutes late today. I had to call him out.
That's I
I,
deserve
I need things to talk about.
it.
But no, I mean, like, life happens, man. Like you're very busy. And I mean, obviously we'll get into all that. I mean, we're here to talk about the band Noxen just released the first full length called Rattlesnake. So that's out streaming everywhere right now. So if you're listening to this, when you're done, go stream that on all the streaming services. And that's a follow-up to an EP that came out like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, 2018. The first EP came out, and then this time coming back with a full-length album. A little bit different sound, but I think some similarities. Hopefully, you'll be able to tell that they're from the same artist.
Yeah, I mean, lots to talk about tonight, including a new segment called Take a Shot, where I'm trying to get the listeners involved. And Take a Shot is sponsored by the V Spot in Scranton, serving up shots, beers, good music, great food, 7 days a week. So I got a few questions for you from that. So that's good. We'll get into that too. But thank you for sharing that, by the way. Trying to get people involved and kind of more familiar with maybe who you are. But yeah, so new album's out. It's been out for what, 3 weeks ish?
Yeah, 3 weeks. Came out in the middle of April, and it's a big relief for it to be out. I definitely loved making it, recording it. I mixed it and mastered it myself here in Noxen, and it was a real haul. I mean, the learning experience of doing all that was literally hundreds and hundreds of hours. But so I'm ready. I'm glad it's out.
And how long did it take you?
Well, I mean, it's funny because during the pandemic, I was just, well, I guess we're still in it, but lockdown, the lockdown on paper was the time of my dreams. I'm like you said, I can find myself very busy, and I just really always work towards being able to relax at home and, have a structured life. And during that time, I was just really not inspired. So for those 2 years in the pandemic, or, when it was real hot and, everything was canceled and we were locked down for the summer, I really didn't do anything creative. I just worked out and, started learning how to play different instruments and whatnot. And then it really wasn't until last October that I buckled down and just started recording.
Last October?
October 2021. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So from then until about February, I was writing, recording.
So that came together fairly quickly then.
Once I buckled down, yeah. I think I had a little creator's anxiety where I just felt guilty for not making stuff, and so when I finally got into a good routine, I slapped it together pretty quick.
Yeah, I was expecting you to say, hey, I was working on this for 2 years during the pandemic, not I didn't touch anything for 2 years. And then, one day I woke up and said, yeah, it's time to get this out. Here it is.
Well, the songs took 10 years to write, or longer.
Okay.
They're the one song, the last song, Holy Water, is, back high school song that we started writing, and just kind of moved and shaped throughout the years. And I don't think I had the talent or skill to record it in the past. And I finally tackled it, and it came out the way I feel like I would like it.
Yeah, I feel like, and what I like about your music a lot is I feel like you're a storyteller. And I think, I mean, you know, you've always been, I've always known you as a very creative person. You know, you are the creative director at CoCreative, a great marketing and ad firm in downtown Wilkes-Barre. We can get into that in a little bit too, but like you've always been like, you know, a videographer and you know, a content creator. And I feel like that really comes through in your music as well.
Yeah, I think it's because that's all first and foremost, I like to think of myself as a videographer or a filmmaker. So I took a pretty similar approach to making music, even to the point where I'm not really necessarily, I wouldn't call myself a musician, where I don't necessarily have a mastery of any one instrument, but I can, play chords and then take those chords and translate that and, create something in the program. So it's more of a technician than a musician, but it's definitely interesting. And I appreciate you saying all that.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to the song like an education, and there's just a lot of storytelling in that. And when you listen to that song, it's like you kind of put yourself in that situation when you sing the lyrics. And same with Hold Me Down. Is that how you kind of write music? Is from, and I mean, are those experiences you had and you use those to tell actual stories, or is that just kind of fiction?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is I think part of the reason is I'm most inspired, I think, from past experiences. Is the best time for me to write something is when something really bad happens, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to write about this, and it's almost like a way of getting it out of my system. And I think, I've just been kind of happy these past couple of years. So I haven't found the way to be inspired by being super content and happy. And like, how do you write and some of these songs are happier. And it was just a learning experience of figuring out how to be happy. And the funny thing about Hold Me Down is it's the idea for the album. I moved here to Noxen a couple of years ago, and my neighbor next door was like, if you want to live here, people are going to mess with you. You got to get a gun. And I was like, oh, okay. And I, moving like coming from 44, I was like, well, I guess I best go get a gun. So I like went to Cabela's and bought a child's gun. And, it was like in the plastic wrap. And I just had this like notion of Knox, and he's in the neighbor. He said, like, there's a gang here called the Natives, and they don't like outlanders or whatever they called. And he said that we were outlanders. So that expect, trouble. So I started writing the album as a kind of a concept album about outlanders. And of course, if you're familiar with Noxen lore, there's the Rattlesnake roundup every year, and there truly are a good amount of the snakes up here. So I started creating this story in my head of a family who moved to Noxen, not unlike my own. And there was the gang of natives who would capture outlanders and feed them to this massive rattlesnake. And that was like the idea. And Hold Me Down is actually from the perspective of a creek monster, and it's told like a love story, but it's actually a creek monster who eats somebody who goes and swims in the lake. So that's really the only one that comes from a storytelling perspective, and really the other ones are really about personal experiences here at Noxen, or just in my life in general. Riding on a dirt bike down dirt roads. As cliche that sounds, like for me, that was one of the greatest moments of my life, is just getting on a dirt bike or a motorcycle and riding down. And one time I was riding, an eagle was flying above me, and it just felt like something out of a movie. And of course, like I said, I like to consider myself a filmmaker, so I live for those movie moments, and that's really what I am drawn to write about.
That's America shit right there. Now you said you just moved to Noxen. I thought you were originally like born and raised in Noxen.
Yeah, I just moved here. Actually, I mean, not just 2014. My family moved up to these parts, and I was fortunate enough to move next door. And and I really quickly adapted to the lifestyle. I was born and raised in Wilkes-Barre, and always longed for be in the country, to have chickens and farm animals, and I get to kind of live that dream a little bit up here. and also you work in Wilkes-Barre all day. God love Wilkes-Barre. I love Wilkes-Barre. I love downtown Wilkes-Barre. I love what's growing there, but it's kind of nice to, as you're driving, it just gets quieter and quieter, and you get out and there's all the stars and whatnot.
Yeah, Sam, I was born and raised not too far from Noxen. I grew up in Hunlock Creek.
Okay. It's like the other ass cheek of the valley. I feel
Yes.
like they're very similar, similar people, similar terrain.
Yeah, I
for
feel
sure.
like Shikshini is closer to Noxen than Hunlock Creek is to Noxen, but it's all the same out there, really. A lot of
Nice.
farmland, a lot of
No
deer.
law. I don't think I've ever seen a police officer around these parts. And to my neighbor's credit, well, not to the opposite of their credit, I've never been messed with by any native gang or anything otherwise. Everyone's been really, really lovely.
When I was growing up, there was one cop, and he was. I went to school with his kids. His son was like 2 years younger than me, and his daughter was a year older than me. But we knew where he lived. You know, he always would patrol the area. And he retired one day, and it was like, if you'd never see cops. You know, if you'd see a statey every now and then you're like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, it
Yeah.
was quiet out there for sure.
Yeah. Like, speaking of getting that gun, like, I had never shot a gun. I had never done anything, but I came out here and I wanted chickens. I really wanted chickens. So I was at the Luzerne County Fair, and there was like a box, and it was like peeps, $3 per peep. And I got 10. And, I came here, and my little brother was my neighbor, and he was maybe 10 or 11 at the time. And we built a chicken coop together, and it was this beautiful brother moment. And we raised these peeps up from being little chickens. And it turned out 8 out of 10 of them were roosters. Which are vicious. I don't know if you've ever heard of, like, people get roosters and they're like, they replace their guard dogs because they're so mean.
Yeah.
And of course, cockfighting is, if you have multiple roosters, they try to be dominant. So I had these 10 or 8 vicious roosters. They were absolutely the meanest. They would attack me. They would attack my neighbors. It was a really horrible thing. And I was researching how to get rid of them. And my dad had married a woman from the Philippines, and she had a chicken farm. She's like, you can grab 2 by the head and just spin them. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's not for me. I raised them. These are my,
I like these guys.
I like, for the most part. But finally, this is maybe a little graphic, but you're like, I have to, because they're vicious and they're attacking my hens and my dog, and I have to call the flock and be a farmer for a second. So I took the plastic wrap off my gun that I'd had for a year at that time, and knocked on all my neighbors' doors. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna cut down the flock here. I'm gonna take out some roosters. And they were all like, oh, we'll come watch. And I had a nice little crowd of I never shot the gun. I'm shaking. And yeah, man, that was the first time I had to call my flock and be a real Noxen boy. And after that, I was initiated. I was in the gang.
Yeah, I mean, that's wow. My so I grew up out in Hunlock Creek, like I said, and my mom's brother, so my uncle, they lived out in Reading, and outside Reading, and they grew up and they had chickens and all this kind of stuff too. And they would come in for Easter, and they brought in a box of three little chicks and gave it to us for Easter. My dad was pissed because I'm like we as little kids were like in love with these things. Like my dad couldn't be like, yeah, take these home or whatever. Like, so he oh man, I felt bad. Looking back on it now, it's like I appreciate that he didn't kind of veto that and immediately. But
you had him for a little bit.
Yeah, not very long. One actually ended up dying out of the 3. I forget how or why. I mean, they were in our house for a while, like in a big box with the heat lamps and stuff. But eventually my mom took them to someone down the road who had chickens, and they happily took them because they were used to that life. And as much as I grew up in the country, I was not so much a country boy, I guess you could say. I mean, I definitely played in the woods and shot BB guns and rode bikes and all that kind of stuff, but and I wasn't out catching snakes. And I mean, I had friends that did that, man. I remember I always got made fun of because I was like, I like to keep clean. I was never, getting dirty in the mud. And I had a friend named Ken Sprow, and he was just like wild. We'd go to ponds and he'd be catching tadpoles and frogs and this, that, the other thing. And he'd always come home filthy, and I'd come home clean. And his mom is like, "Why can't you come home like John does?" Like,
Yeah, my little
I'm just
brother's
a
got
baby.
that instinct. They just like he'll grab something right out of the pond without even seeing it. It's like an animal instinct. Yeah, I prefer to, keep for the most part pretty clean.
Yeah, my mom still lives out there, and so do my two brothers. But yeah, I actually moved out to the big city, which was Kingston in 2002. I guess it was. I was in college, had an apartment in Kingston, so I lived in Kingston, Wilkes-Barre, then Pringle, which is right outside of Kingston, and
Yeah, of
then
course.
I'm in
I
Duryea
went to
now.
the
So,
side CC.
oh yeah, so right across the street almost in Pringle. But
And
yeah,
you never moved back to Hemlock Creek?
I didn't, and I don't know why. I mean, I really like the fact that you're kind of secluded, and you can kind of, if you want to build a fire, you can do that. You can kind of, you know, screw off a little bit more because you don't have neighbors. You don't have to kind of worry about being too loud. But I'm a people person too. So like,
Yeah.
I live in a development now. Um, you know, it
Yeah.
just, I like being around people. I feel like I'm part of something, and you have the neighbors close by, and everyone like knows who you are. And I don't know. I like both, but I also don't like being far from a hospital either. Like you guys out there, man,
Interesting.
you get hurt. You're taking a ride.
Yeah, you got the first aid kit. That's so funny. I mean, most of the injuries are silly stuff, but it happens, and it is a little spooky. You're 20 minutes at the least from some type of healthcare facility, but you got fishing wire and needles, and you could, for the most part, fix anybody up with just that little super glue.
Yeah, I guess if you
Like
learn, you'll be all right. But yeah, I
yeah.
drive back to my mom's house now, and I see ponds. I'm like, I used to swim in that. Like, I would never do that now. It's really weird. It's so weird. It's so
You
weird.
know too much. You know too much at this point. And then what? You moved down even further to the town to be closer to Scranton, and then now you're in between
Yeah,
Scranton and Wilkes-Barre.
yeah. I'm in the middle of both, which kind of, it was good for when I was working in Scranton because my wife worked in Wilkes-Barre, I worked in Scranton, so we were kind of in the middle. And then I left that job in Scranton. Now I'm with Axelrad in Wilkes-Barre,
Mhm.
and she actually works from home now. So it's like, I don't know. This one.
How are you liking Axelrad? I know it's a little off topic, but I just remember seeing that you announced that, and it just seemed like such a cool, perfect fit for what you do and what you stand for.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's funny. I always say that I went from a job where I had management that was just always up your ass, like
Right.
every day, 8:30 meetings in the morning, just to talk about the same thing they talked about the day prior,
Yeah.
to a place where it's kind of like you're kind of left to your own devices, and like you're you know our boss, like, he hired you for a job and you're expected to do it. He's not going to like be over your shoulder. He just like, just do your job. And I'll never forget the one day, like, he was out of the office, and he didn't, announce it. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm going to be out tomorrow. Like, make sure you check in with me." This, that, the other thing. I'm like, wow, this is really weird. Because my last boss, he'd make a big deal. Like, all right, I'm going to be out tomorrow. I want every one of you guys, like, call
Right.
in, check in with me. Let me know what you're doing, where you're going, who you're seeing, what you're talking about. It's like, dude, I don't need to be babysat.
Yeah, that was the thing about CoCreative too, is I'd worked in, I got my first job as a graphic designer at age 15, and I've been in the industry ever since. And I have some entrepreneurial tendencies, and really early on at CoCreative, Holly, who's the CEO, she was like, "Hey, if you like it here," which I think that conversation I was saying, like, "Hey, I really like it here, even though I was just doing a one-off project." She said, "If you want to work here, you can make yourself full time." And that was like the end of the conversation. And it was like, "What do you mean I can make myself full time?" It was like a challenge of like, yeah, run with it, like build something. And it was like, okay. And I did, I started the video team, started the video team there, and we've grown ever since. And that's, how I came to be where I was, just that challenge to my entrepreneurial spirit. It's just like, yeah. And I had never been in a culture like that, where there was just such a freedom to kind of pioneer your own path. And as a creative person, it's like the dream.
Yeah, I can imagine that. For me, I mean, I spent a lot of time at the Weekender in my early years, which is
Of course.
very Axelrad-esque. But I was
Mhm.
at the radio stations in Time Shamrock for 7 years, and I was kind of like ingrained in this, every day, 8:30 to 5:30, like, meetings and this and that and other thing. So like when I got to this, I was kind of like, excuse me, just kind of like, this is almost like too much freedom. I don't I don't know what to do with all this, but it's going really well. I mean, I feel like um I'm part of a family again, and which is weird because it's work, right? But I'm sure it's kind of the same vibe over at Cole, and it's really neat where everyone that you work with, like I could ask someone to help me like move my home tomorrow if I needed to,
Yeah.
and they would, like they wouldn't
Yeah.
even like question it. And I never really had that camaraderie at the radio station. I mean, I had great friends there. I had a lot of fun there. I made a lot of money there, but I never felt that like closeness like I do now. So
It's exchanging time for money there.
yeah, yeah,
You
and
spend so much time doing something, and you should feel that. I think, it's my opinion.
yeah, well, it's such a cool thing to be a part of too, because it's grown so much since 2000. So we started in '03, but I think he had a brick and mortar like store like 2008 or 2009ish. But it's cool to be a part of that growth. And I mean, I'm sure you can kind of relate to that with Cole, like how that started and where it is now. And it's cool to be part of those pockets where it's young owners. They're kind of breaking the mold of that 9 to 5 grind. It's more of a collaborative and team effort and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. I can't imagine, doing anything else. You know, I, I see myself at CoCreative in some capacity for the rest of my days, and,
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
other creative
talk
projects.
about Cole. I mean, and obviously the main focus was Noxen, and we'll get back to that. But I mean, I wanted to talk to you for a few different reasons. I haven't hung out with you since I guess we said
Yeah,
2019.
sure. For
And I
sure.
mean, Cole's a big part of your life, and they seem to be doing things a lot. Um, and the name's everywhere.
Yeah.
I can't go on social media without seeing you guys, whether it be at the show you guys you just had. We'll talk about that in a minute, but like just being involved in the community and showing support for the area that you work and live in. And so talk about Cole and what Cole Creative is for those who don't know, and kind of where that might be going.
For sure. Co-creative is, like you said, it is a creative agency in downtown Wilkes-Barre. We work on web development, design, social media strategy, video production, and public relations. And it really started out, about 6 years ago, in an office, not much bigger than this dining room that I'm in right now. And um, since then, like you said, there is a true focus on the community, and we every year we, donate a tremendous amount of time. We're out attending events and we're supporting things, and that's really been a catalyst for the growth of Co-Creative. And that's, like I said, led by Holly and her commitment to the community. And we've really grown as a result of that. And I don't think that was an intentional like marketing ploy, like, oh, we'll go out and go to all these events, and because of that, everyone will think of us when they think of marketing in NEPA. But it's just something that happened as a byproduct of a genuine community sport. And through that, I've ended up getting involved, and I'm kind of an introvert. And, like I said earlier, like about being in a dream scenario when I didn't have to do anything in the pandemic, it was like my dream day is to work 9 to 5, come back, be creative for a little bit, and, watch something on TV or have a fire outside. And I find myself on boards and on committees and all of these wonderful things in the community, and it's like a whole lifestyle, being a part of CoCreative, and that lifestyle is one that's really genuinely committed to our community and its growth, and more importantly, really focused on our team, which is really kind of ballooned out and grown in a really beautiful way over the past even 2 years. We've doubled in size and in scope. It's pretty wild.
And you are the creative director there, correct?
I am the chief creative officer, but
that's a promotion, right? That was just recently.
Newer,
right?
Yeah, it's a newer promotion, but it's pretty much the same. Just expanded scope of duties, and really, I find myself a lot more involved in the sales side of things, which is pretty interesting as a creative person. But it's really important when you're talking to a potential client that they trust that their creative ideas can be implemented by your team. So, I find myself really working as kind of a bridge between our collaborators, which we call our clients collaborators, just because best marketing is done when there's a good collaboration, and our team. So I make sure that their goals are understood by our team, and our creative is top notch.
Now, you mentioned you're kind of like have a hand in sales and you're a creative person. I've never been, and this is not a knock on those who are creative. I've been around a lot of creative people over the years, and they're not good with like asking for money. They're just not like they're just asking for money is very hard. It really is.
My main, that is, it's funny because, I have this history, and like I've been in marketing for a long time, and I've been in marketing and NEPA for a long time. And there's a big difference in marketing and NEPA than, because you can't, you work with a small business and it's coming out of their pocket sometimes, or you're working with somebody who's, they're like investing their retirement in your marketing ideas, and the stakes are often very high and the budgets are very small. So it's like, there's a lot of stress wrapped up in all of that. So that is a problem I have, is where I'll be there and I'll be like, yeah, like no problem. No, you don't have to pay us at all. Or that's like my typical approach is I'll come in and pitch them a humongous idea. And then, obviously it ends up being a little bit larger than the scope that they're prepared for. But now we've insulated me with a great team of, operational members who I'll come in and I'm kind of like the circus monkey, where they'll talk the details and then I'll pitch them a creative idea, and then I'll step back and somebody else can talk about the money part of it. And I'm safe.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
Brutal. Yeah. Like I said, the worst thing in the world is, like I said, you meet with somebody and they're like, all right, I'm retired. I've got some money put away and I want to do this thing I've always thought about doing. And you're like, oh man, like the stakes are now so high because I want this to work so badly for you. And, we're fortunate enough to have a great team who, accomplishes goals and whatnot, but still doesn't make it, when things get tough, you're like, oh, this feels scary. You're in it. You're like, I'm in your business now. Like I am just as committed to your success as you are.
But it's such a cool feeling too, to be part of, especially when it goes well.
Yeah.
I sold radio for 7 years, and that was always like a stressful thing. You're selling a product that you can't see, you can't touch it, like
tough to track.
You can't track it. Like it's just like you hope to God that someone tells the owner that they heard their ad on the radio, because all you need is one. All you need is one person.
You're like, oh, it's working. Yeah,
I heard you ad on the radio. Great, it's working. It's perfect. But but there's times where like and it's our job as consultants and things like that to create different ways or different avenues, whether it's like an event or a promotion or whatever it might be. And when you see that succeed, there's like no greater feeling. So it's like it's such a fine line to walk sometimes.
What about, not to turn the tables on you, but I mean, you've got a lot of experience in doing podcasts. What's your end game here? Well, I mean, it's really incredible, and you've got an awesome setup. It looks really, really official. What's your dream scenario here?
Oh, thank you. This is my
that exposed brick. Mm,
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm in my basement. This is my bar. This is the backdrop of my bar.
okay.
The computer is on the bar. I mean, the end game for this, man. It's one of those things I started just because the radio station that you were featured on a few times.
Yeah.
They blew it up. They moved on from it for whatever reason. I'll still never understand, but whatever. I don't get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. So it is what it is. And I was doing a podcast as part of that radio station or the radio
Yeah.
show as well. And then, when the show kind of got canceled, I'm like, what the hell do I do now? And I always say, when that got canceled, I was like, I feel like I need the scene more than the scene needs me. And
Damn.
I'm like, how do I shove myself into the scene still, and like where I'm still involved and still here and still helping people and giving a platform to musicians and creatives and things like that to kind of like talk about themselves and what they do and why they do it. And I just thought, well, maybe I'll just continue doing the podcast part of it. And here we are. It's one of those things. I mean, I would like to get out of my basement. It's one of those things that the audio suffers the most. Um, like
Yeah.
doing it like this, right? It's so it's convenient for sure, right? Like it's what 9:20 on a Monday night, and we're talking, right? If I had a studio, would that be feasible? I don't know, but I would like to get it like kind of a studio setting with better equipment where I can kind of control the audio more, just because like it's an audio format. Yes, we're recording the video to go on Facebook and YouTube and shit like that too, but for the most part, podcasts are, consumed through your ears.
Right. Right.
So it's like I wanted to sound the best it can. And I think you have to have more control over that. I mean, you sound
You
fine.
sound good. And I feel like I'm going through I'm going through an iPad here. So you got that. You sound really crisp.
This is better than what you're doing. And this is no offense to you. I mean, but not everyone has access or wants to have a freaking, microphone near them. So it's like, it is what it is. I think it works. I think we're in a situation where, through the pandemic, audio has taken the back seat in a lot of formats because we're all doing Zoom meetings and things like that. So people kind of like give you a little bit more of a break. So I think I'm okay there. But eventually, I'd like to make this more pro and, grow it more. And I've had the opportunity to, talk to a lot of musicians that are a local level and also a more national level, which has been really neat. And I just kind of want to keep the conversations going and give people a platform to talk about who they are and what they do.
Got to say, the Sean Daney episode was incredible. Big fan of both of you guys. Yeah, that's great stuff. I feel like you're if you talked about aliens more, you'd be a Rogan level.
Oh yeah. I'm only a million followers away from him. No, but thank you for the kind words. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I appreciate you reaching out to me and wanting to be involved. And let's get back to your music. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Let's do it.
You talked about the EP and then the new album, the full length, and it's a little different than the previous one. You kind of have a full band, as opposed. I think the last EP was almost like a solo effort.
Yeah.
Talk about the crew you put together, because I think it's almost like a family affair.
Yeah, the first one, I've always played in a family band. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and my grandma was a music teacher. So we all, whether we liked it or not, most of us liked it, were into music growing up. And my big brother Jonathan plays guitar, and he's an incredible guitar player. But he was the first of our kin to have a kid, and as a brother, and he was my closest friend. We grew up, shared a bunk bed, and for way longer of my life than I'll admit. And when I moved to Pittsburgh for college, he moved out with me, and it was, he's my best friend, and he had a kid who, obviously my nephew is incredible. but I saw a lot less of my brother, and we didn't have time for, there's sometimes life happens in such a grand way that, my band or the band feels silly. You're like, I'm not going to have you leave your child to like come and play the same songs over and over. So we ended up just not really doing the band anymore. And I still had the kind of longing to create music. So I started making it by myself. I had moved to Noxen, so I was really inspired by the scenery, and specifically the creek right beside my house is a Bowman's Creek. So the windows are open, you can hear it rushing, and it's a really beautiful, sonic experience. But I started writing by myself using just a synthesizer and GarageBand, and put together that first EP as a solo project. And then what ended up happening is, we got asked to play a show, which was awesome. And, this is back years ago, but we got asked to play a show, and it's like, am I just going to go up and hit play on an iPad or and just basically sing karaoke? Because I'm not an excellent musician. Like I said, I'm more of a technician where I kind of manipulate all these sounds to make a song. So am I just going to go up and sing karaoke essentially, or should I start putting together a band? And like I said, all my siblings play instruments, so I went crawling back to my older brother John, and my sister Anna has a beautiful voice, and my little brother Dave plays bass, and my other brother Elijah plays drums. And before you knew it, we were essentially playing together in the same exact band that we were playing in before, but the songs were a little bit different and more pop focused, where the other stuff we had written in the past was more folk, Avett Brothers, Mumford and Sons style. But my solo album was kind of like a dream pop experience. So we kind of blended the two. So it's like dream pop folk music. It's a little bit strange, but it feels good to me.
Yeah, I had Mumford and Sons written down. I also had Head in the Heart of Monsters and Men kind of vibe. I hate relating bands to other bands, because it's like, what if they hate that band?
Yeah.
But
no, those are all big
for anyone
influences.
listening, maybe if you like those bands, they might like what I hear anyways. But
it's funny because we grew up very my parents, and I don't find myself a very religious person, but we were raised very religious. So my influences, I didn't listen to the Beatles until college. And when I did, Band on the Run by Paul McCartney was on, and I asked my roommate, I'm like, what is this? This is awesome. It's like, it's Paul McCartney from the Beatles. And like from there, I just, my influences are like, Disney VHS tapes, or like the song that played at the end of Land Before Time, or like, a Christian rock DC Talk from the 90s. That was like the only music I was allowed to listen to. So, the influences end up being like that. But I think if you just get people who love together, a family band of folk, it naturally starts sounding like those bands that you had mentioned, and create those sounds.
it's fun that you mentioned the Disney tapes and things like that. I just got back from Disney about a week ago, and I mean, there's some great music in those movies.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I just sat through a Frozen thing one day, and like it just like I'm not visually interested in what's going on,
Right.
so I would listen to the music at that point, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
I don't know if you ever the main influence I would say for this album, if I was to pick a Disney movie, would be the old time like the Robin Hood, the Fox version of Robin Hood. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but Roger Miller is like an old 60s crooner, and he wrote all the music for that. And it's I listened to a lot of music from the 50s and 60s as influence for this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And what's it like? I mean, making music with your family. I mean, it's pretty wild to even like you have enough family members to have a band full of.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like any other family dynamic, because there's a pecking order that just naturally occurs. And I played with my bigger brother, so it's like I'm going to listen to anything he says, and if he puts his foot down, I'm afraid. And then I have my little brothers, and I make sure that it's just this beautiful. But when it's good, I think that when when there's that natural family chemistry, you know, it's really hard to replicate that sound when you don't have that home life experience. And a lot of these songs are deeply, deeply personal. And, you know, my parents got divorced when we were young, and it, you know, at the time it really affected us. And there's songs on there that kind of tackle those feelings. And there's something about, you know, singing that with your little sister who has that shared experience, and it just makes it all the more personal. And, you know, people come up afterwards. At the last show, we were like, I kind of went into the backstory of the one song. And, you know, people who relate to that will come up and be like, I was crying. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, you know, because to me, that's just my own personal small circle of life experience. And then with anything that you create and put out in the world, it obviously affects people. And there's millions of people whose parents have been divorced and it affected them, and they could relate to that. So having that family element is just, I honestly, you know, can't really imagine creating music without them there. It's a secret weapon.
How cool is it that you can create something that would make someone cry like that? I mean, that's one reason I love music. And I'm a big, I don't know if I got worse after I had a kid, but like, I'm a softie, man. I mean, I've been at concerts and I've been crying. And I mean, I went and saw Incubus 2019. I think it was their 20-year anniversary of Make Yourself. And I'm just there and I'm crying. And it's like, because I was taken back to like when the album came out, the friendships that I had, the moments in time. Like, it wasn't because I was sad. It was just like a powerful moment. And like, I feel like an idiot because I'm sitting there crying. And like the same things happened like when I was at this Sherman Theater seeing Blue October and hearing him tell stories about, you know, losing his kid and not from death, but just like, you know, he was fucked up and he lost his child, but like he, you know, picked himself up off the ground and he made all these changes, and now his daughter's in his life full time. And like as a father myself, like I'm hearing that story, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine not having my son in my life. And I'm imagining like, you know, my son being away from me and then like getting him back. Like what a powerful, like emotional thing that may have been. Like, what's it like being able to do that? Like, that's gotta be like wild.
Yeah, I mean, I too am a pretty, I can be a softie, specifically in movies and music. You know, there's just, you know, specific moments that'll just, you know, hit you right in the tear ducts, like, there, like the feels, as the kids say.
The kids say, yeah.
But, you know, I think part of it is probably a little bit manipulative, not in a bad way, but like, you know, again, to refer to making a movie, is you structure a story to have an impact. So like a song, I try to structure in the same way. So, you know, it has a beginning where you introduce a concept, and then a middle where you make the audience care about the concept. And then you should have a climax that is impactful. So whether you're increasing the drums and you're making it more intense, or, you know, you're adding more vocal harmonies, I really structure my songs to have that rising action and then that climax, and then it comes down. So it's almost like a whole experience. And if you listen to the album and you're thinking about that, you'll probably be like, oh, God damn, he did that in every single song. And that's like I'm a one-trick pony. But really the idea is that journey that people go on is, you know, I think what, in my opinion, is how we crafted our music to make it special, is that each song is its own little journey. So, you know, it feels incredible to create a song like that and in that fashion, and then to see, it's like making an invention and watching someone use the invention and it works. It's like the best feeling in the world. And, you know, obviously if people can relate to my life experiences, it's like you make an immediate friend because, you know, you're relating to each other.
That's great. I mean, I said earlier, you know, you kind of take your, you know, your storytelling and your, you know, your writing and your, you know, the movie making and things like that, and kind of inject it into the music. So
yeah,
it all comes together. You're a creative man.
Appreciate that. So this shots thing, are we taking shots?
No, it's Monday night. I mean, you're more than welcome to take a shot. Take a shot.
And I was wondering what the name came from.
Well, it's brought to you by the V Spot Bar in Scranton. So the whole
of
take
course,
a
right? You
shot,
said, yeah.
right? So
We don't take shots. You
no,
take shots at the V spot.
they're yeah, take shots at the V Spot responsibly, of course. I mean, if this was a Friday night, maybe I'd take a shot. I don't know, but it's Monday, long week ahead of me. Just got back from Disney, like I said. So, but
cheeks.
I encourage people to take a shot, ask some questions on Facebook and Instagram, and I do have a few questions for you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, Ray Keene. I'm not sure if you know him or not, but he asks how your pig is doing.
Miss Mabel, yeah. So I did buy an impulse pig in where the Amish live, Lancaster.
Yes.
I was driving through a hand-painted sign, the piglets for sale, stopped just to look at them. Next thing I know, I'm driving back in Lancaster with a pig on my lap, Googling how to take care of them. And turns out they only live to be about 40. So I don't have to live with that life decision for too much longer. But she's doing great. Yeah, I have a little video here of her eating an orange.
Wait, so how old is this pig?
Right now, she's about 6.
I mean, you said 40. Like, that's a long time.
That's how long they apparently live in good circumstances. And yeah, she's a spoiled lady. So I think she's gonna be doing all right.
Yeah, man, I don't think I want to ever own something that could possibly outlive me.
This pig's definitely gonna outlive me. Absolutely. I only have a couple months left, probably. But
going.
So she's yeah. But Ray, yes, Mabel's doing good.
That's good. That's good. Evan Mock asked, "How did you get so fly?"
Well, it's funny. Evan Mock is also a Noxen fella. He just moved out here, bought a farm. One of my favorite people. I actually asked him to be in the band before. He's an excellent bass player, and he actually told me, he's like, your little brother Dave plays bass, and I was like, no, he doesn't. It turns out he does. Evan Mock. I have good role models like Evan Mock to be fly towards.
There you go. Cassidy Taylor asks, "What was your favorite song to write and why?" It's a two-part question.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, what's the hardest song to write?
Oof. My favorite song to write, I really, you mentioned An Education earlier. That song is really fun. It's I went to college in Pittsburgh, but I ended up not finishing, and ended up, I'm still paying student loans, even though I don't have anything to show for it. And it's just kind of a funny and ironic thing. And there was just a time when I had first moved back and I was freelancing, doing wedding videos, as you know, and I really found myself being like, I should have just stayed in fucking college. Like, why am I, or I was freelancing, but I was also working in construction. So I was like doing all this stuff and, covered in concrete dust every day. And, it's just like, whatever. I'm meant for more than construction. And so it's about that. So it does have a fun meaning, but also the song's just a lot of fun. And I did collaborate with, I spread the circle a little wider than my family, and An Education is really fun. I brought in the band, The Human Beings, who are really incredible. They're a local band. And actually Mike Steck, who is also a local musician.
Dude, he's awesome.
Yeah, he plays the keys on that, and there's that key solo, and he played that in one take, and it was just an incredible experience. And actually, back in the day, Jordan Ramirez was helping me kind of put that song together. And funny story, so we had this whole song recorded, and I had put my laptop on top of my car and drove off, and it got run over by a tractor trailer. So I had to start from scratch, but I rebuilt it. And that was a lot of fun. I think the hardest one is definitely Holy Water. It's a 6-minute song. And like I was saying earlier, the Beatles really inspired me because they do all these tempo changes. And I never done a song with tempo changes. If you listen to most of our songs, they coast, they build an intensity, but they keep the same kind of driving beat the whole time. But Holy Water changes tempo 3 times. And that was a real challenge to at least record and create something that's interesting for 6 minutes long.
Yeah. Cool. And then last question, my wife decided to jump in and she asked how the name Noxen came about. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, right?
Yeah, yeah. Out and about here in Knox, it's a beautiful place to be. Rattlesnake Roundup. My dream is just to. You heard it here first. Is I just want to play at the Rattlesnake Roundup, and then I'm probably going to pull the plug. I'll call it quits.
I
If
feel like
they
that
ever
could
ask,
probably happen very easily.
I haven't asked anybody, but I feel like they get like Strawberry Jam or like they get those jam bands or the cover bands, and I don't think we'd ever do any cover song justice just because
Yeah, maybe you're right.
maybe you
There's
can
a
play
there's a
that
gentleman. I'm
song.
not sure if you know of him. I'm sure you do. He went to high school with me. His name is RJ Scouton. He is
Oh yeah,
he's from Noxon. He loves Noxon. He is so mad that you have the band name Noxon.
I see him driving by me all the time, but he shouldn't have moved out of Knoxon if he wanted to keep that. I'll tell him
Oh
how
shit!
much. Yeah, fighting words. When I first moved here, first week here, I had went out on my dirt bike and my light went out and it got dark and I was still riding back and he pulled me over and he was like, you can't drive around in the dark like this. You're gonna get killed. And I was like, it's RJ Scouton from Stealing Neil. Oh my God. Yeah.
He would do that too.
Yeah.
I could definitely picture that.
He was also, I think he was looking out for my best interest. So
Oh,
I appreciate
absolutely,
that.
100%. He's not mad at you.
Um,
He's just telling you what you needed to hear.
but I'm a big fan of RJ, and we know a lot of the same people. And
Yeah.
you know, I think he was when I was voting at the fire hall. He was a volunteer there last time I saw him.
Gotcha. And then I have one last question I have for you for the take a shot segment. What's in that safe back there? What's in
Well,
the
I
safe?
started out with one rifle, one child's gun, but I do have 5 brothers, and the arsenal has grown, and once it's there, I don't know anybody who can move it. So everybody in my entire family, just wherever they live, they keep their weaponry as uncomfortable as I am, because I truly am a pretty peaceful person who gets nervous around things that could kill you quick. But there's a lot of weapons in there.
Yeah, I own one gun, and it's just to have. I hope to never use it. I mean, I've shot it on the range a few times just so I'm familiar with it and how it works. But yeah, I'm not one of those gun guys. I just
Yeah,
not.
not a gun guy either. And my partner, she does not doesn't like guns either. So every once in a while I'll I have a good imagination, and I'll imagine that I got to keep a gun by the bed or something like that. But I don't think there's knock on wood, I feel pretty good.
Yeah. I hope you never have to use it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, one last question outside of that, the take a shot segment. What's next? What's in store for the band Noxen this year in 2022? Anything else?
Yeah, that's a great. We're spread out across Pennsylvania now. My siblings, my sister moved to Washington D.C. Her fiance is in the armed forces, and his work took him out there. My brother lives in Pittsburgh now, and my 2 younger brothers are next door to me. But we're still working on music. After the album came out, I thought I'd want to just relax and not work on music or work on other things, maybe work on a film or something like that. But we pretty much immediately started recording an EP that we're looking to put out, of more exploring this more folky sound, and we're just gonna see where that takes us. I mean, we also started working on a 30-minute short film about that Noxen lore of the big rattlesnake and the native gang. But these things take time, and been trying to figure my priorities out, I guess. But I think we're just gonna chill out for a little bit, make some music, and I don't know if there's any shows on the horizon. Maybe the Rattlesnake Roundup.
Well, I feel like I blew it. I mean, you just had a show at Karl Hall last week. I think it was April 28th or so.
Yeah.
That may have been my last chance to see you. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Damn.
It was my birthday. too.
Jesus,
So
I missed your birthday and the
it
show.
was a
The
magical show. But if we play at the Rattlesnake Roundup, I'll get you in the beer tent.
Can you get me in
and
the back door? Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get you in the beer tent. We'll have some clams, and we'll listen to Stealing Neil and the Strawberry Jam, and
Sure.
maybe we'll sneak up and sing a song or two.
Sounds good. And then finally, where can people find your music?
We are live on all streaming platforms as well as YouTube, and you can connect with us on Instagram at Noxen_music.
Cool. And I'm assuming Facebook as well.
Yep, absolutely. I'm not
Sweet.
sure if people still use Facebook as much, but
Are you anti-Facebook?
I'm on there for work, but I find it to be a black hole.
Yeah.
In most scenarios.
You're not wrong. What about TikTok? What about Twitter?
I don't tweet, and I have a TikTok because people share TikToks with you, and it's annoying to have to download it every time. But other than that, I think it's a pretty big. I could find myself, and I'm sure this is a universal thing, but you get up in the morning, like, should I work out? Yeah, let me just read a couple stories on Reddit first or whatever. And then like an hour will pass, and you're like, well, I guess I got to go to work now. And I think if I increase the amount of platforms that I have, that's not going to get any better. So
you're not wrong. You're not only are you handsome, talented, and creative, you're very smart.
Yeah. If I catch you.
Well, the band Noxen, thanks for Sam. Thanks for hanging out tonight. I appreciate your time. It was good catching up after the last few years. It feels good to still see you on a screen, but it's not a still picture of you smiling and posing. It's you moving and talking. So,
well, next time we get together, first couple rounds are on me for making you wait for 15 minutes. I appreciate you,
dude. I mean, if I could count on both my hands how many times I was late getting on one of these, I couldn't do it. But we should try and get together. I mean, you work 5 minutes from where I work. We can
no excuse.
We can grab some beers after work. Maybe at Franklin's, nice place on the square there. But thank you again. Check out Noxen on all the streaming platforms and on social media. And Sam, hopefully I will see you sooner than later.
Sounds good, Johnny. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you.
Peace.
See ya.